a really steep climb to get to where they are. They get to about 2,200 feet above the ground altogether. That's all the higher they get during this entire thing. And then they start to turn back to the airport. So that tells me that something's wrong with this airplane. I kind of got that indication already when they started that descent. And they accelerate a little bit and then they climb up again. And now they're turning back towards the airport. It's such an important thing or such a dire thing that they feel like they got to get back to the airport in a hurry. That's why I don't think it was just a single engine failure. Single engine failure, turn on the autopilot, climb out, call ATC, tell them you want an ILS approach someplace, get stabilized, get all your checklists done, and then get back into a nice steady state approach to a runway someplace, maybe back here at Statesville, maybe someplace else, maybe you go down to Charlotte, get this thing on the ground. But they're in a hurry to get back to the airport. So they get back to the airport. Again, when they start heading back towards the airport, they're kind of level for a while. According to the ADS-B data, the airspeed fluctuates a little bit in here. And then they start another steep descent. And that steep descent comes back as they get towards the airport. And at this point, I think they're most likely setting up to land on runway 10. As you can see, the flight path here gets real tight to the airport. And now, did they not break out and see runway 10 when they're flying visual flight rules still at this point? And maybe that explains why they took a hard right turn to kind of back and come back around to the airport to fly back into runway 28. We don't know yet. But at any rate, it looks like they're lining up for runway 10. For some reason, they break off. I think the reason they broke off is because they were too close to the airport. So at some point, you're too close. You don't have enough. You can't lose enough altitude to get down to the runway. You think, all right, I'm too tight. I'm going to break it off. I'll come back around to runway 28. Now, how can they just pick one runway or the other? The winds were pretty much calm. So at this point, the wind is not a factor. You can land on any runway here. Again, this is an uncontrolled airfield. They're not talking to a control tower. I don't think we're going to get any ATC back and forth between this aircraft and anybody on the ground. They break it off. They descend really low. Now they get to be 400 feet above the ground, AGL, 400 AGL, as they're looking out off to the left to the runway. It's a little deceiving when you're that low, because when you're that low and you look out and you see the runway, it looks as though you've got enough downwind clearance to make a nice normal turn back to the airport. It doesn't. It's deceiving. Normally, you're at about 1,500 feet when you look out on that downwind and you see the runway.